Hey, thanks for coming in today. I'm Mike. It's Chad. Well, Chad, we sure appreciate you coming in today. Now, in our organization, we have a lot of spots, positions available right now. Which specific one were you interested in? Yeah, it's for the cop hater position.
So this is Mike the Cop. He's one of those social media cops who tries to give the public an eye on the inner workings of law enforcement. This video I'm responding to here is called If Cop Haters Had Interviews. Now, I am aware that Mike most likely made this for comedic or satirical purposes, so I know this probably wasn't necessarily intended to be taken seriously. However, since it does intend to get a point across or does criticize another point of view, I consider it fair game to respond to.
Excellent. That is a growing field.
Actually, that is correct. Police criticism does appear to be a growing field, and one has to wonder why may that possibly be the case.
With lots of opportunity for expansion, especially in social media.
This is also correct. The cop block movement is very large, with lots of different opportunities for people to get involved. If you look at the Get Involved section on the cop block website, you'll actually see plenty of different ways individuals can get involved with the movement, contribute their talents and skills to the cause. That includes cops. Yeah, if you're a police officer who's sick and tired of bad cops squandering the reputation of your profession, by all means, we'd be happy to have you aboard the movement.
Let's cover some of the basics, shall we? Do you have a stable residence? Actually, I stay with my mom. I mean, it's in the basement, but it's pretty much my own place. I thought about moving once, but moving the whole gaming setup just sounded like a pain.
Well, this is an ad hominem personal attack, attempting to paint your opposition as a bunch of losers who live in their parents' basement and spend all their time on video games and are lazy or whatever, misses the point of the argument entirely. Someone can live in their parents' basement, be lazy, waste all their time on video games, and still make good arguments, and still be correct.
You should be aware that we always check out our applicants' social media presence, so do you already have an account? Absolutely. You can find me on Insta at Mom the Meatloaf. I see what you did there.
Yeah, social media can be a very effective tool at getting ideas across. That's why people frequently use it. As a matter of fact, I think we could assume that Mike here is aware of that as well, since he frequently uses social media to try and defend police against criticism. So I'm not entirely sure what point he was trying to get across there.
So why cop hating as a profession?
Maybe it's all the news stories about cops beating the shit out of people or using excessive force that come out on a near constant basis, or the fact that they're essentially mercenaries for the government to enforce their victimless crimes on innocent people.
Well, you see, I got a parking ticket on my college campus once, and it was a parking cadet that did it, not an actual cop. But
Mr. Strawmaned, give me a break.
Oh, come on now, this is such a blatant and obvious straw man. I mean, what, were there so many legitimate criticisms of the police that you have to conjure up a scenario that doesn't even involve the police to discredit your opposition?
that's when I knew for sure the whole system is based on oppression and violence.
But of course, instead of giving actual examples of the entire system being based on violence and oppression, he decided to instead cherry pick an example that's not only not that oppressive, but also has absolutely nothing to do with the police.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that experience. Must have been terrible.
Now, of course, we could have an honest conversation about terrible experiences people have actually had with the police, but it would be much easier to conjure up some straw man scenario that never happened. You know, I bet the families of George Floyd and Eric Garner will think this is real funny what you're doing right here.
But I guess the silver lining is getting your degree, right? Well, no, actually, I had to drop out because I was so traumatized and I'm on disability now, but 3 3/4 more years and I would have had my degree in First Amendment auditing.
So once again, attempting to demean or belittle people who hold the opposing viewpoint does not actually do anything to address the opposing viewpoint. You can go on all day about how cop haters are uneducated and dumb, but it's not going to prove their opinions wrong at all.
Moving on, what would you say your greatest strengths are? Well, I absolutely love jumping to conclusions when I don't have all the available information.
Isn't that kind of what you're doing, though? I mean, by portraying police critics in this light and rejecting any sort of nuance whatsoever, it would seem like you're kind of jumping to conclusions without all the information.
I like apologizing for my privilege?
Well, since you brought up the subject of privilege, have you noticed all the special treatment that cops seem to get? Like, think about it. Shit that would land you or me in jail for years, they won't even get fired for. Like, they'll straight up murder somebody and the worst they'll get is an unpaid suspension. Like, imagine yourself at your job, wherever you work, and imagine that you were to kill one of your customers. Imagine the absolute levels of deep shit you would be in.
Oh, and I'm really good at judging other people's actions based entirely on speculation.
Speculation my ass. If you're on video beating the shit out of somebody, or just straight up killing them, there's no need for speculation. That's just straight up wrong.
I mean, who needs experience to make a judgment call? Am I right or am I right?
Well, apparently not the police. I mean, they make all kinds of crazy judgment calls without experience. Or at least the types of judgment calls that would imply little to no experience. For example, there was one story where a cop shot a kid because the cop thought he was holding a gun and it was actually a video game controller. Now, I've never been to the police academy myself, so maybe they don't necessarily teach this, but guns and video game controllers look totally different. Well, I know that the NES had a gun-shaped controller, but even that looked totally different from an actual gun.
Wow, we are certainly ticking a lot of boxes here. Facts? They're like kryptonite to me.
Oh, trust me, I can tell that perfectly well, because in this video you've used absolutely zero facts to make your arguments. Instead, you basically just created this whole strawman character here to vastly oversimplify or generally try and discredit any and all police criticism.
Oh, and I am the best at labeling people who disagree with me with inflammatory and scary names.
Kind of like the tendency to take anyone who criticizes the police or the legal system and label them as anarchists or cop haters or sovereign citizens.
Now for everyone's favorite, what would you say your greatest weaknesses are? Weaknesses? Looks like we have ourselves a Nazi! Me? Nazi! I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to ask that. I didn't. Works like a charm. Every time. Whew. You really had me going there. That was impressive. That's how I get the cops to back down in the comments, too.
The comparison between police and Nazis isn't actually that far off, considering that in both cases, at the end of the day, their ultimate job is to impose by force the will of those in political authority onto people. If that will happens to be something immoral, whether it's putting Jewish people in gas chambers or beating the shit out of people who have the wrong plant, at the end of the day, it's the same deal. Your job is to enforce the laws, not to criticize them. That and Nazis straight up were police. The word Gestapo comes from Geheime Staatspolizei, which is German for secret police.
Okay, in all reality, we're on a pretty tight budget around here. We can't provide every possible tool for the job. Do you have any resources on your own to enable you to do this? It's funny you should ask, because I carry my tool with me everywhere I go. It's my weapon against the weapons carried by those along the blue wall of silence.
You know, the ironic thing about all this is that people often accuse cop blockers and police critics of being violent and chaotic. Meanwhile, while the actual police are beating the shit out of people with their batons, pepper spray, etc., we often resort to peaceful means of getting our ideas out there.
You could even call me a keyboard warrior?
So keyboard warrior is one of those blanket derogatory terms used to try and discredit people without resort to any sort of logical basis. Not only is it a completely meaningless term, as the medium through which an idea is expressed has absolutely no bearing on the logical validity of that idea, but its use frequently often implies hypocrisy. Aren't you also criticizing what I have to say over the internet via the keyboard? Wouldn't you also count as a keyboard warrior? Yeah, this term is basically the intellectual equivalent of sticking your tongue out and putting your thumb over your nose.
Oh, and I have to mention, this is an unpaid internship, so you're okay with making no money.
Yeah, that's the thing about cop blocking. It's largely a volunteer, unpaid service. Actually, now that I think about it, cops get like a full salary, pensions, benefits for sitting on their ass pointing a radar, while cop blockers, the people who go up to psychopaths with a belt full of weapons to challenge their authority and to do something to protect our freedoms, are paid nothing. Kind of gives you an idea of who the real heroes are in this situation.
Does a microwave ding when there's no Hot Pocket in it? I don't know. Yeah, me either. But what I do know is that there's no such thing as a good cop.
And this is how I know that this video isn't addressing police criticism in good faith. There's a big difference between criticizing policing as an institution and criticizing individual officers personally. You can criticize an institution without having it out personally for those who affiliate with it. Saying you hate Walmart is vastly different from saying you hate people who work for Walmart. I'm very critical of policing as an institution. That's something that should be more or less obvious at this point, but I'm also very much aware that plenty of officers join the force with good intentions. There are police officers who are nice people. As a matter of fact, I know some of them. There are plenty of cops who work hard to protect and serve the community, and I think they deserve all the respect in the world. In fact, one of the reasons I advocate for private security is because I think it would do these good cops more justice. Well, think about it for a minute. Under our current system, the cops that go the extra mile to serve the community and the cops that beat the shit out of people are not only both paid the same, but their reputations are affiliated with the same organization. So the simple fact of the matter is that you can't even begin to adequately address police criticism until you recognize this nuance between hating policing and hating individual officers. This has been Philosophossum, making stupidity play dead. Have a good one.